All right. I think we are live. Yeah, we are. So we can admit students now. Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is the Masterclass with Syreeta Neal for all vocal and music production students. Welcome, everyone. I hope you are having a fantastic Saturday morning. Thank you for waking up super early, 9 a.m., to be with us today. Before we start, I want to tell you a little bit about Syreeta Neal. So, she was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. Syreeta Neal is a third generation blues musician, voice teacher, upper elementary music educator, and activist based in Los Angeles. Syreeta was raised in a family of artists and began her 21-year musical career as an international touring and recording artist before moving to LA and transitioning into vocal coaching and music education in 2011, with an emphasis on racial equity in the music classroom. Aside from her lived experience and deep roots in Black American traditional music, Syreeta also holds a specialist certification in vocal jazz, R&B, and pop rock from Berklee College of Music. She performs frequently both as solo artist and member of the Neal Family Blues Band. In addition to performing and teaching music, Syreeta works as an anti-racism and equity workshop facilitator in music education spaces, and she currently serves as a board member of the Los Angeles ORF chapter. Welcome, Syreeta. We're so happy to have you today with us.
Thank you so much. I am super, super excited to be here with all of you and to talk about music and to talk about thinking like a musician. So I am going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen here so we can start chatting. And as we go on with this talk, I really want you guys to understand that this is going to be just a conversation. So if you have anything you want to ask or anything you want to share, please go ahead and just put it in the chat. Okay, let's see here. All right. So we're going to talk about finding your voice and discovering and owning your own musical identity. So I'm going to talk a bit about how to create a identity for yourself that is really authentic and true to you, because that can really help with building your confidence as an artist. It can help with understanding how you want to present yourself and who you want to work with, how you want to collaborate, all of those things. So let's start. I'm going to just share a little bit about myself. So as you heard, I come from a musical family. My name is Syreeta. I'm a singer-songwriter. In this little picture here, you can see the man with the guitar and the white shirt is my dad. His name is Kenny Neal. That's my uncle playing bass behind me. This was from a few years ago at the San Diego Blues Festival. So I grew up hearing music my entire life. My dad is one of 10 kids, and all my aunts and uncles also play music. My brothers and sisters also play music, so it was really something that I became familiar with and comfortable with before I even really knew that this is what I wanted to do for a living. It was just in my environment. When I was 12, I started taking singing lessons, I think because my mom got tired of hearing me singing loudly around the house and being a little bit pitchy. So she signed me up for singing lessons because I think she was a little worried that my loud singing might damage my voice one day. And that was really helpful in terms of confidence because I was able to understand how my voice worked, which meant I was able to understand how to get the sounds that I wanted to create out. I started performing when I was 14 with my family, mostly jazz and blues. But during that time, I also joined a University of Toronto, because I was born and raised in Toronto, gospel choir. Even though I was only 14, I kind of snuck in. But I sang with a choir for many, many years. And that was a huge part of my vocal and my ear training, because it gave me the ability to identify harmonies, which is when, when you have two or more different notes or tones going on at the same time. I studied jazz in school. I was still taking vocal lessons, but performing with this choir was really probably my most valuable musical training, because it wasn't like a class where I had homework or I had to go home and study or I was going to be tested, but I was still learning all of these skills: how to project my voice, how to present myself on stage, and how to sing with others and blend with others. I started writing my own music when I was around 20. And it was around that time that I also started learning how to play guitar. So I started playing guitar not because I always wanted to be a guitarist necessarily, but I had been writing music and performing with a friend of mine who was a guitar player. And I started feeling a little bit like I had to depend on him in order to be able to perform. And I was thinking, what if there's a time where he's not available or I can't find a musician to play with me? How am I going to do this? So I started learning how to play guitar just so that I could accompany myself, very basic guitar. And that also really helped me with being able to write songs on my own, because I was able to come up with melodies, but also play music behind it to sort of help me hear the whole song and not just a portion of the song. So learning an instrument, even if you're just learning the very basics, is really important for both producers and for vocalists, because it means that you get to create music with a full context, right? I always say you can tell how strong a song is if you can just sing it with either just piano or just a guitar. And that's something that you want to learn how to do yourself, so you're not calling your friend who plays guitar and going, come over here, can you help me finish this song? So that's really how I began playing instruments. So in 2011, so I had been touring. I got to travel the world playing with my family, which was always really, really fun. And then in 2011, I had my son. And so I wasn't really able to tour and travel as much. And that's when I became a teacher. So I started teaching voice just kind of as a job to have while I was raising my son. And then I realized how much I really, truly loved it. And the reason I love teaching so much is because I love helping people. And this is everybody from little ones, 5 years old, all the way to, I think my oldest student is 68 or 69. And I just love being able to help them discover who they are as musicians, discover what they have to offer that is unique and that nobody else in the world can offer. And that's something I really try to make sure that anybody who's learning to sing or learning to play can recognize, right? That everybody has their own unique sound. And also that being a skilled musician requires talent, of course, but truly it is more important. I would say it's like 20% natural talent, 80% working on your skills, developing your technique, doing your homework, right? So this idea that, in order to be a great singer, you have to have been born with this great voice is really not true, right? Everybody can learn how to use their own instrument in a way that is really powerful and really unique, right? Your own musical identity. So now I teach music. I teach in a lot of different ways. I teach private voice, guitar, piano, ukulele, but I also, before COVID hit, was teaching as a general music teacher for 3rd to 5th grade elementary students. So lots of different ways to incorporate this kind of learning, and I can't quite pick a favorite. I love them all. So that's a little bit about me, and I want to talk a little bit about our musical intuition, right? So a lot of times we can think to ourselves when we're first starting out playing music, I don't know anything about music. I don't know how to read music. I don't know how to play an instrument. Therefore, I'm not musical yet. And that's really not true, because we've all got musical knowledge inside of us. just because we've all grown up around music and you absorb what you hear around you, and you may not even realize that you're analyzing music, but you are. So this is a video, some of you may have seen it. This is an amazing artist and educator named Bobby McFerrin, who had a very famous song called Don't Worry, Be Happy. And he, in this video, is going to sort of demonstrate for you just how much musical knowledge we have and how much musical intuition that we have inside of us. So I'm going to ask that as I play this video, just try following along with what he's doing. Try singing along with what he is doing and see how that goes. Here we go.
Talking about expectations. Watch. Ba, ba. Ba, 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 ba. Okay. Yeah. Now, what's interesting to me about that is, regardless of where I am, anywhere, every audience gets that. But it doesn't matter, you know, that's just, you know, the pentatonic scale for some reason.
If you're looking for a job in neuroscience, I think...
Okay, so pentatonic scale. Have you heard of the pentatonic scale? Yeah, so the pentatonic scale is one of those musical phrases or sentences or patterns that we all can sort of identify intuitively. So that means without necessarily having to think about it, but we can feel and recognize it that way.
Talking about expectations.
Sorry. So I say this to say that a really important part of musicianship, especially for young people, is to trust your own musical intuition and to believe that you understand and can think like a musician, even if you haven't necessarily had formal training or had lessons. I saw, was that Daniel who said he's been taking piano lessons since you were 3? That is awesome. That is one area where, as a musician, I didn't get when I was a kid. I sang all the time and I took singing lessons, but I didn't learn how to play an instrument until I was much older, which meant I had a lot of catching up to do. And it was cool because I really enjoyed it. But starting out young, like you all are doing, is really, really great. It's going to give you a really wonderful musical foundation to move forward with. So moving on, we're going to talk about the singing voice. So in order to sing effectively and confidently, it is so important to understand how your singing voice works, or your voice box. So I've got this little graphic in here that shows what our vocal cords look like. This is what they look like when they are open, which is when we are breathing. And this is what they look like when they are closed, which is when we are creating the sounds. So in our voice box, or our larynx, is where our vocal cords, which are sometimes called vocal folds, that's where they live. So as you get older, your voice box becomes a little more pronounced, which is with men, we have what's called the Adam's apple, but really everybody has this larynx. And if you kind of tilt your chin up and take your finger and slide it down, that first little bump, lump that you feel, that's your larynx. That's where your vocal cords live, right? So you can kind of feel it vibrating as you talk or you hum. And so when our vocal cords are open, we're breathing, we're not creating sound. When they come together and they vibrate, and they're shaped kind of like a V. So in this picture, it's showing it vertically, but they're actually horizontal like this, right? And when they come together, they vibrate. That's how we create the different sounds, right? Or frequencies for our production people, the sound waves. When they vibrate together, we want to make sure, particularly when you're young, because your vocal cords are not fully developed until you're around 20 or 21 years old. So they're very delicate. They have layers of muscle, ligaments, and then like a mucus or membrane to protect them. If you imagine shouting or singing, really like pushing and yelling, instead of vibrating like this, they're going to slap together, right? And when your vocal cords slap together too often, they're going to get little calluses, or what we call vocal nodes or nodules. So I'm saying this to you because, especially for young people, a lot of times my younger students will come into singing lessons and they'll say, I want to learn this Ariana Grande song, which is like requires really, really big sort of sounds and belting. And I have to remind them that when you are young, your vocal cords are so delicate and kind of thin, that we want to make sure that we are singing in a way that is appropriate for a growing voice. It doesn't mean you can't sing an Ariana Grande song, but it means that we have to use certain vocal techniques that will allow these vocal cords to continue growing and functioning in a healthy way. So I'm not sure if any of the vocal students are familiar with what we call our vocal registers. They are just, it's just a term for the different qualities of your vocal tone, depending on which notes you are singing in your range, right? So if we think of a piano having all of these notes from very low to very high, your vocal cords can also create a range of musical notes from low to high. And they do that by either shortening, right? Getting kind of shorter like this, or stretching out and lengthening for higher notes. So when we talk about our vocal registers, we have three main vocal registers that we talk about, which are chest voice, head voice, and our mixed voice. And I don't know about you, but for a long time when I would hear about these vocal registers, I thought the sound was actually created or vibrating in these areas. And it's not really that. It's more psychological, where we want to picture the sound in our bodies to get the healthiest quality of sound. So our chest voice is more of our speaking, or what we call normal voice, right? And our speaking or normal voice, and yes, thank you, Jessica, musical instruments have their own registers as well. So as we're speaking or singing in our normal voice, I don't know if you've ever experienced singing and you're like really going for it with this song, and then a note hits and it feels kind of like your voice is going to crack if you keep going for it, or maybe your voice actually does crack. It's just your body telling you, nope, we shouldn't be singing in our chest voice anymore. We want to move up to a different sound or a different register in order to get this sound out more easily, in order for it to sound a little nicer. So that is why I'm always telling students, if it feels hard to sing, you're probably singing it in the wrong register. If you feel like you're straining and struggling to reach a note, it's probably your body's way of telling you, maybe we should move up to our mixed voice, which is where we picture the sound resonating here, right? So if we think of, we have chest voice, head voice, and somehow we got to get from our chest voice to our head voice without it sounding super obvious. So we're going to use what we call our mixed voice, which is sort of like a bridge to get from down here to up here, right? And we use our mixed voice because that's a little bit, it's a head voice with a little bit of chest voice in it. So it just makes a smoother blend. If you want a smooth blend, there are some styles of music, think about like yodeling or country music, where you want those different sounds to be very pronounced. So it's just a matter of understanding how this all works so that you can choose and be in control of the sounds that you create, so that you are leading the song isn't leading you, right? Which brings us to warm-ups. Why do we need to warm up our voices before we sing? Oh, hold on. I'm sorry for my popping earring. You know what? I'm going to take it out. So why do we need to warm up? Are singers athletes? Can you tell me in the chat what you think? Yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Singers are vocal athletes. And like any other athlete, you don't want to run a marathon if you haven't stretched, right? So with singing, we don't want to do vocal athletics if we haven't warmed up our voices. Warm-ups can be kind of boring, or they can be kind of fun. So one of the things that I like to do to warm up my voice, especially if I have a performance coming up and I am in sort of a crowded space where I don't want to be going la 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 very loud, I have a little straw. And we call this, when we exercise our voices with a straw, we call this straw phonation. And what it does, and you can use, I have it as a necklace because I just like this cute little necklace, but you can use any kind of reusable straw. They have collapsible straws that go on a keychain. And what you're doing is, and I will send, actually, I'm going to send a link to a YouTube video teaching you how to use straw phonation if anybody is interested. But what it does is it allows your vocal cords to warm up, create sounds, while all your other muscles are in the perfect position to support that sound. So have you ever done singing warm-ups where you're right? Lip rolls, or even humming, right? It's the same idea. You're not creating big sounds. You hum a lot?
Yeah.
Humming is a great way to warm up your voice. One little tip I will give you when you're humming is that we still want to create space in our mouths. So I always say, imagine there's a little marble sitting on your tongue. So your lips are still closed, but your teeth are not closed, and your tongue is not pushed up against the roof of your mouth, right? So we're creating space that way. So warm-ups are always extremely important. And if you don't know how to play scales on your piano, I would recommend you can go on YouTube and find a vocal warm-up, but make sure that you're looking, and even Spotify has vocal warm-ups, but make sure that you're looking for warm-ups that are specific to your voice, which means if you are 10, 11, 12 years old, you want to look for vocal warm-ups for that age group. Shannon, you can play scales. That is so good because most of our vocal warm-ups are scales. So once you learn how to play a major or a minor scale, you can warm up without having to rely on anyone else to do it or even finding a playlist to do it. So there are lots of ways to warm up our voices, but the most important thing is that we don't go straight into a song without first warming up. I also want to mention that there are different techniques depending on the style of music that you're singing, right? So a lot of times we think of, and I know this was the case for my own musical training, we think of you've got to learn classical singing in order to sing well. But what I found was, because I come from a family of blues artists, and that is the style of music I sing, it didn't really translate. And when I got a little older, I started studying and learning, oh, there's actually different techniques to sing pop, rock, jazz, musical theater. Aisha, you're learning Christmas carols. Awesome. I love Christmas carols. So yes, so you want to make sure also that you're sort of stretching out and learning different styles. I love Queen. Who else loves Queen songs? I love Freddie Mercury. I did, there's a performing arts school in Huntington Beach that I used to teach at, and we did a big Queen tribute show, and it was so much fun. So when you talk about singers like Michael Jackson or singers like Freddie Mercury from Queen or even Ariana Grande, do you think that those singers studied singing, took singing lessons? You can tell me in the chat. I love Billie Eilish too. We all have a lot in common with our musical taste. Yeah. So most singers, even if when they first started their careers, they were self-taught, most professional singers at some point will take singing lessons or even take their vocal coaches on tour with them to help them. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to learn songs effectively. So I call this a song study. So I've got a few tips for you. And in talking about sort of learning how to sing and taking singing lessons, tip number one, you don't need to just listen to your favorite songs or favorite singers. You want to study them too, right? We can learn from our vocal classes and our voice teachers, but we can also learn a lot just from both watching and listening to our favorite artists. And not even just singing, but any instrument. So I'm going to show you, does anybody recognize this woman with the red hair in this video? Her name is Mackenzie Thomas, and she's going to talk a bit about how she learned how to sing in a very specific style, which is riffing or singing runs, right? So that's when you sing, you know, if you're singing the word sunshine, right? You sing it straight. Sunshine. That's kind of a run. You're singing these different notes. She is really, really good at singing riffs and runs. And I just want to show you a little bit of what she has to say about how she learned how to do that.
Okay.
Growing up, I listened to a lot of Southern gospel and bluegrass because that's what was sang.
Wow. In Kentucky.
But I'm a metalhead. I love heavy metal. Instrumental heavy metal is like one of my favorite things because you listen to it and you break it down and you hear like the guitar riffs and stuff. That's how I developed like riffing, trying to mimic the instruments. Yeah. And then always like, you know, Whitney and Mariah, listening to that stuff, that amazingness. But yeah, heavy metal. I had a vision of love and it was that you sing turned out to be
She's incredible. I get goosebumps every time, and I look and I go, how? Because I'm not a singer I don't sing a lot of riffs and runs. She does it so fast. But isn't that interesting that she learned how to do that by listening to heavy metal guitar solos, right? I first heard of Mackenzie when she was on The Voice, and I don't even think she won, which is wild. But I follow her on Instagram, and I love listening to how she sort of reinvents a lot of songs that she listens to. So when I, way back in the 90s, was learning how to sing, I didn't have a lot of the technology that you all have now, where I could actually slow down riffs or slow down solos and then learn them note by note. So I spent a lot of time in my bedroom with like a cassette tape or a CD, rewind, play it again, rewind, play it again. And I mostly did that with people like Stevie Wonder, Whitney Houston, and some of the gospel artists who sing a lot of really cool riffs and runs. And that is not something that I necessarily did in my voice classes, but that was an example of kind of doing, not even realizing how much homework I was doing on my own, and learning how to sing riffs and runs that way. So in terms of studying songs, and this is even if you are not a singer, but any musician, you just want to kind of get inside of the music and think about all of the different sounds and tones that you can identify as you do it. So that is the first thing. Make sure you're not just listening, but you're studying songs. The next thing that is really important for singers particularly is to print up lyrics. If you're learning a song for a performance, you want to print up the words and have them in front of you. Why do you want to print up the words and have them in front of you? Because you are going to take notes and you are going to make notes, right? When you can visually see, say you're learning somebody mentioned 21 Pilots, a 21 Pilots song, and say the singer does a riff that goes up and back down. You can just write above the word, do a little scribble, up and back down, whatever helps you to visualize where the melody or the notes of the song are going. You can also put little notations in the lyrics to remind yourself where to breathe if you want to do a different kind of phrasing. So having the lyrics versus, just looking at your phone and singing along to words on your phone, having the lyrics in front of you where you're actually writing in and making notes really helps your brain to connect what you're hearing to what you're physically doing when you're learning the song. So I always have my students make notes. They practice their song with the notes until they feel confident that they've got it completely memorized, right? Once you've got it memorized, then it is your chance to make it your own, right? So we learn the song as it was written, but then we get to have some fun with it, create what we call melody variations, which is sort of what you just saw Mackenzie doing there. She changed up the melody a little bit to that song, Vision of Love. When you know a song inside out, you can improvise without worrying about getting lost and not being able to find your way back home. And by back home, I mean back to the actual melody of the song. So as you can see with tip number 3, one thing I tell my students so often drives them a little crazy. We don't practice until we get it right. We practice until we can't get it wrong. And what I mean by that is, this is how we develop muscle memory. Have you all heard of muscle memory before? Let me know in the chat. Can anyone tell me what muscle memory is? Jeremy, do you want to unmute? Oh. Somebody else raised their hand and I missed who it was. Okay. Yes. I can't.
Hi.
Christiane, there you are. Okay. What is muscle memory?
Muscle memory is when you remember something like so well that you don't even have to really think about it. You just know it right away.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So, yeah, we don't have to think about how to talk for the most part. We don't have to think about how to walk or how to ride a bike if you know how to ride a bike. And the same goes with practicing singing a song so much that your body knows what to do. So I cannot tell you how many times, especially when I was younger, where I was doing a performance and for whatever reason, maybe I was distracted by something in the audience. Maybe it was like a really big show and I was super, super nervous. And I get up on stage and the band's playing and it's time for me to sing my opening note. And my brain goes, I don't know these words. All the words have left me. All the information has left my brain. And what I realized over time of maybe like 2 or 3 times panicking is if I just open my mouth and start singing, then the words come because that muscle memory kicks in. And when I mean start singing, I mean, maybe I don't know the words. So the band is playing and I sing some oohs and some yas and some ahs and get myself warmed up into the song. And then suddenly all of that muscle memory kicks in and then I'm just kind of coasting. And so that is the goal of practicing so much that it becomes a part of your muscle memory, right? It's the brain-body connection that we really want. It can get you out of so many stage fright, scary situations. So my next tip is don't try to sound like anyone else, right? We can get really stuck in a trap of being overly critical. How many people have heard themselves sing in a recording and been like, I don't like it, right? It can be hard to hear your own voice. So what I like to tell young aspiring singers is to not just focus on what you did wrong, right? So I'll often tell students, record yourself singing, listen back to it, and make a list of 5 things you really loved. Then make a list of 5 things you'd like to improve on. So like stars and wishes, right? I'm just reading, Jeremy. It's so early for me to sing, but you may hear me singing a little bit here and there. So when you listen to yourself, I want to encourage you to really think of praise first and then critique, right? If you can't find anything that you like, record it again, maybe play it for someone else, ask them to give you 5 things that they like about it. We can get really caught in a trap of, it's not perfect, it's not perfect. I sang 20 amazing notes and 3 notes, and all I can focus on is the 3 notes, right? So when we can be in the moment with what we're singing, then the imperfections not only don't matter as much, but they also help to create what we call an authentic musical moment. So don't trip out on mistakes. It's basically what I'm saying here. Is there anything else? Oh, all right. Next slide. Oops. Sorry, Mackenzie. All right. So now we want to talk about telling the story. Can you give me a thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up if you have ever performed before in front of an audience. Thumbs down if you have not in the chat.
I have.
You have?
Yes.
Was it scary?
It was a church.
Fun? It was what?
It was a church audience every time I played drums.
Oh, and you played drums. Did you feel nervous?
Nah.
No?
Yes.
Awesome. So when
I performed at my school talent show.
You did. What did you perform?
Ode to Joy.
Ode to Joy. Did you play piano?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Now, were you scared?
No.
Not scared. Alyssa, you said you had before and it was fun and only cried once after. So, you know, what's really interesting about that is that performing can bring up so many feelings. It's kind of like adrenaline. And then when it's over, sometimes your whole body is like, whew. Sometimes you cry. Sometimes you get really sleepy. Sometimes you're super pumped up. But I want to talk to you about some things that you can do to help you if you feel afraid when you're going to perform. Whether it is singing, whether it is playing an instrument, whether it is reciting a poem. One of the things that I want to tell my students to do is to give yourself a backstory, right? So if you think of a singing performance as not just, I'm coming up here, I'm holding a microphone, I'm singing notes and trying to remember the lyrics, and I hope I get it right, and everybody's looking at me, and I'm trying not to freak out, you're not necessarily going to be in the same zone as you would be if you're thinking about, I have this really cool story I want to share with you guys. So give yourself a backstory to the song. And if it's a song, I don't know, say you're 11 and you're singing a song about being 65 years old, you're not necessarily going to relate to that personally. So what you can do is create a story, use your imagination. Imagine that you are watching a scene in a movie and the song that you're going to sing is the soundtrack behind that scene. And if you can visualize a scene or a story when you're performing, it takes your own nerves out of the equation. And now you are just sharing something versus standing there waiting to be judged or critiqued, right? That also is how you connect with your audience. So you can kind of change that nervous energy into excited energy. Instead of, oh my gosh, what if I sing the wrong note? I'm so scared. I'm about to go in front of all these people. You can think to yourself, I love singing and I love sharing music and I can't wait to share this with people. Okay, I see somebody's got a hand raised. Was that Marco? Do you have a question? You can unmute. Okay, hop in if you have a question. So yes, if you take your own...
No tengo una cuestión.
Hmm?
No tengo nada para decir.
Okay. So if you take your own sort of ego out of the equation and just think about like you get to share a really fun moment with a bunch of people, that's when you can kind of be in the moment. You see this little girl with her little pink guitar. She kind of looks like she's in the moment, right? Making that connection. So that's a really important part of it. Now is your time. We are going to do an activity together. So I am going to give you guys maybe 30 seconds to find a piece of paper. You can use pencil, crayons, pencil crayons, and we're going to do a drawing activity. So if you don't have that nearby, you can go ahead and grab one. And this is an activity that helps you to sort of really get inside of a song and have a connection to what you're hearing. If you're not able to get a pencil or a piece of paper, that's totally fine. You can listen along. You can totally open an app for drawing, or you can just kind of listen along and think it through. So what I am going to do for you is I'm going to play two versions of the same song. The first version is the traditional version, and you may or may not recognize this song. It's played a lot around the holidays. It's called the Hallelujah Chorus. And you are going to listen to the original, and then we're going to listen to a different version of it. And what I want you to do while you're listening is to draw what you feel. So that can be shapes, it can be designs, it can be characters. If you don't have the pencil and paper and you can't draw, you can make little notes on your phone where you're just writing down some of the musical elements that you hear, right? So you can write down dynamics, loud, soft, high, low. But drawing I like, because drawing is what connects us to what we're feeling and what we're hearing in a way that's creative. So I'm going to play the first song. Are we ready to go? So I'm going to play the first song for you. And as it's playing, you're just going to draw what you feel. All right. So that was our first one. I'm going to actually, after we're done the second one, I kind of want to see what you're drawing. So I'm going to ask you to show them. All right. So here's the second version. You can flip your paper over and draw on the other side. You can get a new piece of paper. But here we go with this. Now, this is more of a gospel version. You'll hear it's very like 90s, but it's a different version. Here we go. All right. I would love to see, can you, those of you who made drawings, if you feel comfortable, can you hold them up for the first one? Can you hold those up to the camera? And then, oh, Lissa, there's no such thing as bad. Awesome. Oh, I love it. I love seeing the kind of energy and feeling that you all picked up. Okay, so let's see what
I
you
don't
drew
see it.
for the other one, for the gospel version.
I can't see the drawing.
You can't see the drawings. That can you do? Are you in gallery view? Maybe.
No.
I wish I could find. I did this exercise with my son the other day, and I can't find his drawings, but it was very cool to see. You're all very talented, and the thing to remember with this kind of exercise is that there's no bad way to do it, right? Because you're just drawing what you're feeling, and you're tapping into the expression of the music. And you're creating your own expression from the expressions of the music. So that's a really good kind of way of just, especially for production students, to really wrap your head around the songs that you are inspired by and what you are building, is that you can just listen and draw and tap into a different part of your creativity. I knew that was going to happen. Okay, so real quick, let's go over things to remember. So some things I want you to take away from this chat is that, number one, no one else can create the music that you will create, right? So we're not going to try and imitate anyone else. And we're also not going to compare ourselves musically to others, right? It's because you have something unique that only you can create. And that is something that I really want young people to understand, because it's so easy to get into the trap of sort of comparing yourself. I'm not as good. I can't play like that, so I must not be as good. I can't sing that note. I don't have those high notes in my range. I must not be good. Don't fall into that trap. The other thing I want you to remember is, do not practice until you get it right. You practice until you can't get it wrong, right? I also want you to remember that singers are vocal athletes. So you want to make sure you take care of your voice so that you will be able to sing for many, many, many years to come. You don't want to be 13 years old and you've already got a vocal injury, right? So you want to make sure that you are always warming up and that you are always singing in a healthy way. So we're not shouting, we're not singing notes when it hurts, and you're going to still keep straining to push it out, right? And then the last thing I want you to really remember is that we don't need to be perfect, right? So your audience is not going to remember every single note that you sang at a performance, but they will remember how your performance made them feel. So if you do all of the practicing and build that muscle memory, then you don't really have to worry about, am I singing with proper technique when I'm on stage? Your body's already going to know how to do it. And once your body can do it automatically, that frees your mind up to focus on connecting with an audience, having fun, sharing, telling stories. Okay, so I want to thank you so much. If anybody else has anything that they want to share around this, go ahead and pop it in the chat. And if anybody has any questions, you want me to sing for you? Well, you know, what I'm going to do is I will send you, just because it's so early, friends, don't know that I can pull it off right now. I'm going to put in the chat the name of my album, which you can stream. It's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, it's on Apple Music. And it is called Stand Tall. There you go. It's in the chat. I am so thankful to have had this opportunity to speak with you, to hear from you, to see your art that you created. And I just want to thank you very much for having me. And I'm going to stop my screen share now. All right.
Thank you, Syreeta. Thank you for this fantastic masterclass. I hope everyone made fantastic drawings. I had a blast listening to her explain about voice, about singing. I think I really loved that last thing you said about it's all with the music that we create and we make is all original from us, and to not compare our work to others because we are unique and the music we create is unique and special to us. And that, it's important to remember that it makes people feel things and, feel happy. So sharing that happiness is really important as musicians. Does anyone have a question or last question for Syreeta here?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
saw the album and it definitely sounds like you.
Thank you to whoever said they're going to try and get me to the top 100.
Uh,
It was a great opportunity to see you, and thank you for teaching us. And yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. That's so nice of you to say. Jeremy, I saw when we were doing Jeremy, what instrument do you play? Was that you that was saying you play drums?
yes, I play drums, piano, and bass.
Yeah, because I noticed when I was playing the gospel version of Hallelujah, I was like, oh, he's a drummer, just because of how you were moving to it. All right, my friends. Well, thank you so much. I truly appreciate this. And I hope to see you again soon one of these days.
Awesome. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.